Hi everyone, welcome to game 14 of the match between Lasker and Tarrasch. I believe the score is currently 8-3 in Lasker's favor in terms of wins. There's been some draws also. In this position, White is clearly pushing for the win. He has the extra pawn here. However, we do have bishops opposite color. My question to you is, what is the best plan, or basically what would you do here if you're trying to draw? Just pause your video and figure out what move you would make. All right, I'm going to show you now. So this is one of those tricky cases where it's easy to get impatient and basically do something you shouldn't do. What should you do to draw this? Well, honestly, you should just kind of sit tight. A move like bishop to c6 maybe. Maybe even rook d7 with the idea of rook to d3. But probably bishop c6 looks pretty reasonable to me, and it's very hard for White to make progress. For example, if rook a7, let me think. You know what? It's actually annoying because I want to be able to go king c6. So let me not go bishop c6. Let's go bishop d5 instead. And then the idea is I can do this, and it's pretty solid position. Even bishop h1 is possible, or probably king a6 is a little risky. But Lasker made what's definitely a tempting move. He played the move g6. The idea behind g6 is simply to trade some pawns off. And, you know, usually when you're defending, trading pawns gets you closer to the draw. However, he missed something really important here. What do you think it is that White can do that causes a lot of problems for Black? All right, if you saw the move g5, you would be correct. And this all of a sudden, Black is in some serious trouble here. Because if pawn takes pawn, maybe f6, maybe bishop takes pawn first. But the main point is this is, actually this looks good. And we have two passed pawns now. And it's just very, very hard to defend this position. Because our rook is passive, our king is passive. And we're just sitting there defending against these two passed pawns. And it's not going to be easy. I think the position is lost. Just our pieces are too passive. Houdini thinks it's somewhat defensible, which is surprising. But thinks rook a3 is even stronger to start off with this. Because the idea is now this king and pawn endgame, or so this bishop and pawn endgame is no longer defensible because we have two passed pawns. So basically, Black's move of g6 allows White to create another passed pawn. And usually in bishop's opposite color position, two passed pawns is going to be the problem where you can't come back from that. And Black played rook f7, which is a good defensive move. And in this point, White actually messed up a little bit. He just played this move. And after this, he got rook versus rook and bishop, which often leads to a win. However, in this case, Lasker was able to draw it. But rook f7 was a good defensive try, but the best shot would have been this. Bishop takes g6, and now takes. Check. Something like this, threatening bishop f4. After bishop d3, bishop f4 anyway, and there was really no way to stop bishop f4. So, I mean, he had to do this. And this position is close to being a draw. I actually can't remember if it is or not. But, you know, in a practical situation, White always has chances. We have the move b7. And after king a7, bishop takes, rook e1. And this looks losing to me. So basically the idea is here, we can give up this pawn. Hold on, how do we get there again? It was b7 here. So the idea is simply king c5 to b6. So let's say you play a move like this. Huh. I'm just looking at it now. This looks more Interesting. Bishop takes will lose to king b6. King a7. See, because we can't go king c7 anymore. So you know what? Maybe it was a draw. I'm going to turn over d though. Well, now it says rook e2 is winning. Let's say bishop takes, rook a2, king b8, king b6. And I guess the king is just too far out, and it's mate in some number of moves. Rook e2. And you can see that this king is in really dire straits here. And now rook f6, followed by rook f6. I think the pawn has to be in the bishop file for it to be a draw, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, in this type of endgame. Again, I'm not 100% sure about that. But oops. This is him drawing bishop and knight versus, I'm sorry, rook and bishop versus rook. But yeah, basically, I think the best try was what he did was a good try too. I mean, rook and bishop versus rook is hard to defend, and honestly, somewhat surprisingly to me, Lasker was able to do it no problem because the theory on such endgames was not very developed at that point in time. But you know, this is extremely dangerous because bishop f4 is coming, and there's no real stopping it. Followed by b7, and I think the endgame's winning. So, interesting game. That g6 move's tempting, but actually runs into a lot of problems. I think the best move is just holding on tight in that position. Very, very difficult for white to make any progress. Overall, an interesting game, and it was a draw, so it doesn't bring Tarrasch any closer to Lasker in the match, because he wasn't able to win that rook and bishop versus rook. You know what? You guys might want to see the defensive technique, so I'm just going to go through the game real fast, because this is kind of interesting to see how different people defend. Let me turn down the sound of the pieces moving. My bad. There we go. It eventually wins the pawn. It takes forever to take it. Now he has 50 moves. And, you know, the rook from behind just keeps checking. If I recall, he was never losing, too. I think I double-checked. He's using something called the Cochrane defense, where you just kind of keep the rook behind the king, like 4 ranks behind, and usually it's enough to win. This is close though, right? It's close to death, but this move stops the checkmate. Checkmate is still stopped, but this is, I think, a risky way to defend it. I think the best defense is the second rank defense used in the game Van Wheelie versus Carlsen, or other colors reversed, Carlsen versus Van Wheelie. I forget what year it's from, but like within the last 10 years, well, obviously. But you might want to look at that game to see an example of the second rank defense. This was just like a little more complicated in my opinion. But okay, eventually 50 moves happens and it's a draw. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.